hello there. It's your girl Valerie Mason Chase, and welcome to another episode of Marriage Beyond the Breach. Well, as you can see, we don't have the Cookie Man here with us again tonight. And just FYI, for a lot of this season, Cookie Man won't be in a lot of the broadcasts. See, Cookie Man wasn't enjoying his retirement as much as he thought that he would. And so he was anxious to get back to work. So on some Sundays, that's where he's going to be. So, pray for the Cookie Man. Pray for me because I like having my husband home. But listen, I understand that for men, especially, working is a lot of their identity. And so understanding that, I'm okay with it, but I'm okay, but not okay, if you know what I mean. But anywho, that's that about me and the Cookie Man. So I always say we have a great topic on every episode, and I believe that is true. And as I've said before, even though the name of the podcast is Marriage Beyond the Breach, everything that we discuss may not be specific for marriage. However, it's specific to human beings, and human beings are in marriages. And a lot of what not a lot, everything that we talk about impacts some people in some relationships. So even though we may not be talking specifically about something about husbands and wives and relationships and that sort of thing, I believe it can still be helpful for those who are in relationships, both for themselves as well as their partners. So I got a guest tonight. Y'all already know I call her one of my favorite people on the planet. I love this woman. I love this woman so much. I love her spirit. I love the fact that she has a mind to always pursue what's next, to always grow, to always learn. And what she receives, she gives back. She doesn't learn and just keep it to herself, because with her growth, she wants to see others grow as well. And that's one of the many things that I love about her. So I'm going to stop talking about her. I'm going to bring her on so she can talk about herself. It's none other than Dr. Danita Thompson. Hey, Dr. Danita.
Hey, Valerie. Thank you so much. You always give me such a great introduction. I appreciate that. And I know
you deserve every bit of it. Every bit of it is deserving.
Thank you. Some people talk about how much they love you, and it's it doesn't always seem very genuine, but I know for sure, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that when you say it, you mean it. And I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So for those who may be watching for the first time or who are seeing you for the first time, tell them a little bit about yourself.
So I am Dr. Danita. I'm the owner and the clinical director of Mending Hearts Behavioral Health and Family Services. We are a state licensed clinic, mental health outpatient clinic, and I have the privilege of leading an amazing team of what we call passionate people helpers. That's what we are. Right. And so at Mending Hearts, we offer individual counseling, counseling for children and couples, and we have higher level services offering psychiatric evaluations and medication management for those who, may be in need. So that's Mending Hearts. I've also been blessed to be an author. And I have authored a journal called that's it right there. Set Your Body Free, Mind, Body, and Spirit, a Journal to Freedom. And that was really exciting for me. I wrote it during the time that I was working on my own healing journey and freedom journey. And So it's filled with scripture and opportunity for you to reflect and affirm yourself. And there's suggestions of how to care for your physical body, emotional health, spiritual health. And so on my website, Dr. Danita, that's posted there, drdanita.thompson.com, you can purchase a copy.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and one of the things that's really important to me and I'm passionate about is marriage reconciliation, but it doesn't
Yes.
always work out that way. And so I recently became, I took a course, and why can't I think of the terminology? I am
Certification.
a certification
Yeah.
to a certification to help married couples end well.
Mm.
Yeah, and so
Hmm.
although reconciliation is what I absolutely love to do, I am also a certified divorce mediator.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, yeah, that's me. I'm
Yeah.
married for 42 years, 42 years, and 3 children. I have a
Hmm.
38-year-old son, a 34-year-old son, and a 27-year-old daughter, two
Hmm.
grandchildren, and a daughter in love, and one daughter in love on the way.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. And now you all heard Dr. Danita when she was talking about her journal. She spoke about it coming at a time when she was going through her own personal journey. And I know I'm not sharing, telling tales out of school because at the time, and maybe even now, I don't know about now, but Dr. Danita was also in counseling herself. And
Mm-hmm.
see, to me, that is a sign of someone who really cares. Because even as counselors, we still need help. We still need
Yes.
counseling because we experience a lot of the same things that our clients go through. So,
Mm-hmm.
yes. So just because we may sit sometimes on one side of the couch or the screen or whatever, doesn't mean we don't also need and should spend time on the other side. So I think
Yeah.
that's important for personal growth, for personal healing, and for all of that.
Yep. Yes. Thanks for sharing that. Absolutely.
So we're going to talk about something tonight that unfortunately plagues a lot of individuals. And this is kind of close to my heart because it is something that I have struggled with all of my life. And there are times, even now,
Mm-hmm.
that it rears its ugly head. So, we're going to be talking about something that is called imposter syndrome. We're going to talk about what it is and how, what steps can be taken on the journey to overcoming it. So, I always like to start by defining something. So, Dr. Danita, can you just start by defining what imposter syndrome is and how it typically shows up in a person's life?
Yeah. So, imposter syndrome, well, it also known as imposter phenomenon.
Hmm.
It's a term that was coined in the 70s. It's not a diagnosis,
Right.
clinical diagnosis, but it is a term that was coined in the 70s by two clinical psychologists, and their definition was that this is an internal experience of intellectual phoniness. And
Mm.
basically, what that means is that people who are dealing with imposter syndrome have the inability to believe that their accomplishments are deserved or that their accomplishments are legitimate, and that they were achieved as a result of their hard work or their skills or their own effort. They have doubt about their skills, their intellect, the successes that they have achieved. Even though there's proof in
Mm-hmm.
front of them, they still doubt and feel like a fake, or like they didn't really earn it, that it was just given to them, or
Yeah.
whatever someone may have achieved, it was like a unrepeatable fluke or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So people who are suffering with imposter syndrome typically feel, they feel undeserving of praise, of compliments. They feel out of place often, or feel like they're going to be found out, that somebody's going to know that they didn't really earn this, or they didn't really have the skill that people thought that they had. Very,
Yeah.
very uncomfortable with their successes. And I thought about this also for the believer. That often,
Mm.
I think, for so long, for me anyway, the way that I grew up, God got all the glory. And because God got all the glory, it was very difficult to process that you had some skill, and,
Right.
and allow people to recognize your skill. And so we would always say, well, all the glory goes to God, which he does get the glory. However, we have to show up. We have to meet
Mm-hmm.
him. We have to put in some effort. And
Mm-hmm.
so it is okay to take some praise, and it's okay to say thank you. It's okay to say, wow, I got this education,
Right.
and I was able to achieve such and such because I put in the hard work. I did what I needed to do. I was resilient. I had some grit. It really is
Mhm.
okay, to
Yeah.
pat yourself on the back a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a hard posture for some Christians to take, especially those, I think, in our generation who grew up um, in certain faith traditions. I think it's really
Mm-hmm.
difficult because it almost would feel as if it almost would feel like blasphemy. Like you're cursing God
Mm-hmm.
almost to say, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, I did this and I did that. Yeah, as you said, God gets the glory, but he does also equip us. Okay.
Exactly.
And he
And we got
provides
to put our hand to the work.
absolutely. So yeah, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because I really, until you just said it, had not thought about it from that perspective. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can actually see that. And when we give Christians a compliment, sometimes it's almost uh, they accept it in almost a self-deprecating kind of way, almost putting
Mm-hmm.
themselves down in the sense, "Oh no, I had nothing to do with it." But and yeah, it's okay to say that we did. So I really appreciate that
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
bringing that perspective to imposter syndrome, because maybe some of us believers would not have recognized it as that
Right. Right.
when we respond that way when someone does congratulate us on an achievement or an award or some sort of
Mm-hmm.
accomplishment. So I thank you for that. My daughter Sadell, she just wrote, "You're about to make me cry already." And see,
Oh.
she's saying that because my baby girl really has suffered greatly from imposter syndrome. She's done a lot in her life, she's achieved a lot in her life, but somehow she just doesn't see what I see. Of course, I'm going to see it as her mom, but other
Mm-hmm.
people outside can see it as well. And sometimes she just doesn't see that. So that's why she over there about to cry.
Well, I hope that Sadell finds freedom tonight by the end
Yes,
of this episode.
find some freedom, baby. So, what are some root causes? What might be some root causes of imposter syndrome?
I think sometimes personality types lend itself to maybe having some predispositions to, to the struggle,
Mm-hmm.
upbringing, uh, family expectations, one never being good enough, maybe putting labels, having labels put on you as you were, growing up, and what you were told that you were going to be, even if you were told that you were going to be something great, but that you didn't necessarily achieve that. But that doesn't mean that you didn't achieve greatness, but it may have been that label that was, given to you, or you could have been told lots of negative things. So it's really a struggle for you to believe that the things that you are doing are successful, or great achievements. Social media plays a huge role, and I know that's something that you probably will bring up again later, but seeing other people's seemingly perfect lives on social media can, definitely make people feel as though they're less talented, or their success isn't aligning as successful because of what they see on social media. It could be societal, environmental. More of my issues, I feel like, were growing up in my experiences racially, and where I grew up, and societal. I think a lot of my issues with imposter syndrome that's the root of it. It was born out of more of that than anything else. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit as we go on.
Well, I want to, since you already mentioned social media, I just want to stay with that for a minute, and to talk about that, the culture of comparison. One of my best friends, because a lot of what we see on social media ain't real,
right?
Okay, and one thing he had is, when you see a perfect picture, this picture of this perfect family, and he said a picture perfect family is only picture perfect long enough for the pose. Because once the photographer's gone, or once the selfie is done, then they go back to just being their regular, sometimes chaotic, oftentimes dysfunctional selves.
Yep. Absolutely.
So
and a lot of the influencers, social media influencers, they appear to have it all together, like you're saying, but they rarely talk about what it took to get. Some of them are, very successful. A lot of them are very successful, and a lot of what we see may be accurate, because they worked to get. Some of them have worked to get to where they are, but it's rarely talked about, the road traveled to get to where they got to. And so it makes it seem like we're supposed to snap our fingers and be there. Or it makes it seem like other levels of success are not successful because it's not what they have achieved. And so it would be great to have more truth tellers, and more influencers sharing the real story of either what happens behind the scenes when they do finish the pose, or what it took to get to where they are today. And so oftentimes those who are desiring to be influencers, or make some kind of impact on social media, they start, and they make their posts and they put their content out there. And of course they start comparing to the one that they're looking forward to being like. And so it can easily bring that feeling of inferiority when you're looking at someone who has done more work than you have, put in so far.
And I think I know that's one of the reasons why, when my husband is here, the Cookie Man and I share a lot about our 44-year history together.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes when even today, we went to a jazz brunch, and I mentioned that we have been together for 44 years, and oh, they even dedicated a song to us and whatnot. And sometimes I say to people, I can appreciate that, but I say don't applaud just yet because you don't know what we went through to still be together
No.
44 years later. So that's why we are, at least our goal is to be intentional about sharing some of what we did go through to get here. So people don't think that, oh yeah, it could be, it's a piece of
Mm-hmm.
cake and
Mm-hmm.
we be together for 25, 30, 40 years. No, there's work and there's struggle, there's heartache, there's
There's
heartbreak,
resilience.
there's resilience, there's commitment, there's dedication, there's all of that. So I just want to say I like what you indicated because I believe having a balanced presentation,
Mm-hmm.
um, showing not just the struggle, but showing what is on the other side of it as well, and not showing just the struggle or not showing just what's on the other side of it.
Yeah. And it helps people, I think it helps people appreciate where you've gotten to, what you've achieved, if they
Mhm.
knew how much you had to put into it to get there.
Yeah. Either that or it'll scare them away from marriage.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Yeah,
let's face it, some people just aren't built to do the work. And if they're honest with themselves, they could avoid being married and potentially hurting someone else.
that's right.
Yeah.
You're right.
'Cause I like
Not
to say
everyone.
marriage is for grown folks. If you ain't grown, then don't get married yet.
I know that's right.
Don't get married yet. So, Dr. Luna, are there different types or categories of imposter syndrome, or does it generally present the same way in everybody?
Well, in doing my research, these are a few things that I didn't know that these were categories that fell under imposter syndrome. I know that people deal with these, but I didn't know it was connected
Mm-hmm.
that closely with imposter syndrome. But yeah, there are five. The perfectionist. So
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
one who is, looking for everything, and we know that there's no such thing as perfection,
Such
right?
things.
Because you
Right,
will
right.
always be looking to do better. You
Mm-hmm.
can
Mm-hmm.
never reach perfection. But that person who is a perfectionist, any kind of slight error or any type of defect is enough to put that person in a position to say that they failed.
Right.
And then that leads to possibly feeling guilt and feeling shame because they didn't meet the mark.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then there's the expert. And the experts are the ones who are supposed to know everything. And how could you know everything? And so
Right.
just listening to the titles is clear indication of these are people things you can't attain.
Right.
There's no one that will know everything. So the expert, in the face of the slightest lack of knowledge about
Mm-hmm.
something, will then feel like a failure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When they could very well have knowledge about a lot of things, but they feel like I didn't know this, and so therefore they're going to find out that I am not who they think I am.
Right.
Yeah. Then there's the soloist,
Mm-hmm.
and the soloist is the one who doesn't need help from anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and their main concern is who completes the work. And so if someone helps them, they interpret it as a sign of weakness and a sign of failure.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so that's the third one. Then there's the natural genius. The natural genius is the one that aims to achieve their goals quickly and with the least amount of effort. And so they begin to doubt themselves if something becomes difficult. If they
Mm.
do a little bit more work with, then maybe I'm not who I think I am, because this is supposed to come naturally for me. And probably a lot of things do come naturally, but there is no such thing as everything that you put your hands to is always going to come naturally. And
Right.
so they end up feeling like a failure because it didn't come as natural as other things that they had attempted did. And the last one is the Superman or the Superwoman. And so this is the person whose success is based on all the different hats that they wear and all the different roles that they play in people's lives. So they need to be the best mother, the best father, the best son, the best spouse, the best friend. And so they always are the ones that will work longer, work harder, don't take days off, because if they can't play all of these roles perfectly, then that means that they may be fraudulent. They may be fake because they're not showing up the way in which they feel that they should show up.
Wow. That is really interesting. Those 5 categories: the perfectionist, the expert, the soloist, the natural genius, and the Superman or Superwoman. And that last one kind of really hit, because I think, and especially when it pertains to women, I think for so long we either took it on ourselves, or we're told that this is what we have to be as women. We have to do all these roles, and we have to do them not just with excellence, but to perfection.
Yeah.
And there couldn't be any chink in our armor anywhere. And I think that has been very, very detrimental to the mental and emotional well-being, especially for women. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I think you're accurate, and I think it is born out of it's to me it's very similar to when our parents, as African Americans, that we were told we have to work harder, work smarter, to get what everyone else achieves. And I think historically women have had to do the same. We didn't get the same many years ago. So I think we just felt like we had to show up much, in many more ways than men, to get the same not gratification, but the same
recognition.
Recognition. Yeah. To get the same recognition, we had to take on everything.
Matter of fact, I remember, I don't know if it was the 70s, but there was even a commercial. I don't remember the product, but here was the song. I can
bring on the bacon,
fry it up in
the pan,
and never let you forget the I'm a woman.
It was Anjali was a
fragrance, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that was perpetuating that Superwoman myth.
Yep.
Wow. Well, thank God we've come far from that. So for those of you who just might be joining, I have Dr. Danita Thompson here with me this evening, and we're talking about imposter syndrome, what it is, and how we can possibly overcome it. And those who are watching now, I encourage you to share any experiences you may have had with imposter syndrome, or any questions that you may have for Dr. Danita. I like for this broadcast to be as interactive as possible. So just write it in the chat if you have a question, if you have a comment, or if you have experienced anything. And as always, I appreciate, if you haven't already done so, to like, to share, and subscribe. and tell your mom and them, your cousin them, your neighbor them to subscribe to Marriage Beyond the Breach YouTube channel. So, Dr. Danita, in your experience, are there particular groups or particular demographics that seem to experience imposter syndrome more frequently? And if so, why do you think that is? I know we just hit on women, but is there
Mhm.
any other group that you can speak to?
Well, I would definitely say people of color. I think due to racism and bias and societal, well, for women, the societal stereotypes
Mhm, mhm.
play a role in these groups, and also the research. The research says that it started with white women.
Mm,
Um, but then also a lot of research was done on people of color.
mhm,
And initially it was said that we're just feeling that just because, and it wasn't enough research on the experiences
mhm.
that we have had that have been, part of the root of why we uh, feel the way we do and experiencing imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, yeah. And I think also, again, the believers fall in that category. um,
Mhm.
just feeling like, I think because when we see people on the stage, very few leaders are being transparent
Right, right.
about life, about, how they got to where they got to, how they, got on the platform, and the whole idea of being a perfect Christian. When
Mm,
you see leaders who seem like they have no flaws, or other people, it seems like they could do this Christian thing with such ease. They pray very
yeah, yeah.
eloquently, and then you're feeling like, oh, I'm just talking to God and I don't have all the colorful words and I can't pray the way that, I hear other people pray. And so you
Mhm,
start to
mhm,
feel like you are less than
mm.
the Christian. And I just, I don't know, maybe I'm a fake phony Christian because I make a lot of mistakes and I can't live up to,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that's really sad because that has the potential to result in somebody, well, contributing to them backsliding. Maybe not being the reason that they do, but feeling that what they see in other Christians is just not obtainable for them. So
Right.
why try?
Right. Yep.
I can never be that. I can't be that perfect. I can't do that. I can't live the rest of my life and never sin. Well, who can? Nobody.
Exactly. Exactly.
Nobody can. Nobody can. So yeah. So
Yeah. And so
oh
for
yeah, go ahead.
me, earlier I talked a little bit about how I experience imposter syndrome, and a lot of it was, I think, rooted in racism and bias and microaggressions. And I
Yeah.
remember early on in my work career, my teaching career, I I was licensed in New York City. And in New York City, you had to take an oral exam in order to get your
Hmm.
teaching license. So
Wow.
we all had to take this oral exam. And my supervisor, I remember clearly, and this was in the 80s, and I still remember it. He says to me in one of my, he did an observation of one of my lessons, and then when he was given feedback, the first thing he highlighted was how well I speak. And I'm
Hmm.
like, what's that got to do with anything? All of us had to take an oral exam.
Right, right.
So I passed the oral exam. You passed the oral exam. All the other teachers passed the oral exam. Are you highlighting everybody's ability to speak well?
Hmm.
So, those little things like, okay, so what does that mean? Am I not supposed to speak well? What
Hmm.
is that? And then I had an experience when I came to New Jersey. I was interviewing for a teacher position, and this superintendent in South Brunswick, he said to me, we have a growing population of minorities. Do you think, now exactly how did he say it? He said, do you think it is better to hire someone that will represent them, or to hire someone that is qualified?
As if it can't be both.
I'm like, he actually said that? And I said, well, and it had to be God. I'm like, because naturally, no, I shouldn't say naturally, because when I get offended, I can get indignant. And I was offended. And so I said to him, well, if you hire me, you have both. But internally, it was different. I wasn't feeling inside what I said.
Yeah, I get it.
I was feeling, well, am I, can I really, make it with all these white teachers, am I, because I was going to be only one of, I think, I can't remember how many were on staff, but I was going to be second. This was 1992. I was going to be the second African-American in the district.
In the district.
In the district.
Not in the school, in the district. Wow. Yeah.
So internally, I was like, oh, can I really keep up with this, population? And, I already struggle with understanding, and I'm just being honest, I struggle with understanding the humor, not knowing when to laugh, not knowing, it just didn't match. I don't understand why that's funny.
I get it.
Just tell me when the punchline is and I'll laugh, So I had some insecurities with just showing up in conversations because we didn't talk about the same things.
Yeah.
And so that was huge for me. But then when I went to school to get my work on my doctoral studies, I struggled with that. I struggled and just feeling like I did not have what it took to actually finish that. And when I went for one of the intensives, we had to go on, on campus. And initially I was like, how did I even get accepted? Something, is this school reputable? Because, I got in. I mean, it was crazy. The things that I was feeling, mind you, I had already 3 degrees, and I'm feeling. And I am very embarrassed to say this, but I'm going to be very transparent because I know other people have experienced this as well. I grew up in an all-white school neighborhood. People of color were bussed into what they call the better districts in Brooklyn. You know that. And so I grew up in a school district that was predominantly white. And so a lot of what I heard was based on, their perspective of life. And I didn't get a lot of cultural, my own culture, education about my own culture. And a lot of what we saw on TV during those years was all negative, about us. It was always negative. And so, and that we didn't achieve like everybody else. Those were my.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I said that to say when I went to Capella and I stepped in, I saw a lot of African Americans. And I was
Mm-hmm.
already thinking, how did I get in? And when
Mm-hmm.
I looked around, I was like, oh, so this is it. This is the place where they accept us.
Mm-hmm.
This is the
Mm-hmm.
place where they accept us. It must not be to the level of other universities where they accept others.
Right, right.
I struggled. I went through the entire, walked across the stage, and it took me, Valerie, it took me 5 years to
Mm-hmm.
actually say to people, I'm Dr. Danita.
Oh,
5 years.
wow.
I didn't have
Wow.
anybody call me Dr. Danita for 5 years.
Wow.
Hmm. And then I got to the place where I was like, my grandchildren call me Dr. I want you to call me Dr. I want my kids to call me Dr. Mom once I got delivered. My husband can call me Dr. Wife. Call me doctor because I earned it
You've
and I
earned
worked hard.
it. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. I think that goes to show just how deep the roots of imposter syndrome can be. That
Yes.
someone as accomplished as you, who already had several degrees and
Hmm.
now has a doctorate degree, even then experiences self doubt. I think that show, first of all, I'm really sorry that you experienced that. But it does go to show how deep the roots are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
thank God for deliverance, because there's a whole lot of stuff that we need to be delivered from. The
Absolutely.
things that we have heard, that we have believed about ourselves that are just not true.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's
Hmm.
still going on. I mean, I was watching a YouTube, I think they call them YouTube short or something. And one of the representatives, Jasmine Crockett, was on there talking, and she was saying, how can someone say that she's not qualified? Because now the whole thing is they are DEI hires now, right?
Yes.
As
Yes.
if they are
Hmm.
unqualified. And she went on to name all of her qualifications. So how can you say that I
Hmm.
am a quote unquote DEI hire, because that is said to imply that the person of color is not
Right.
qualified for whatever
Right.
position they were hired for. Okay, that's a subtle, not so
Hmm.
subtle way of saying it, because they won't, come out and call you the N word. They won't come
Right.
out and say that you're not qualified, but saying that you are a DEI hire is the implication.
Yep.
And they even
Hmm.
said it about Vice President Kamala Harris and
Hmm.
called her a DEI hire. Well, I won't go into all of that, but again, that's an example of the things that can be said, which, if when internalized, can absolutely contribute to someone developing imposter syndrome and questioning themselves. Is that really true?
Yeah.
Am I really
Hmm.
qualified? Do I really have what it takes? So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's really something. I put up before what my baby girl said, and she said for her it was partly due to being the oldest child and the only girl, and
Mm.
she's right. I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are on that, Sadell. But if you want to share some more, feel free to put it in there. I'll even bring you on screen if you want to come on screen. I'll send you the link. But she is the oldest, and she is the only girl, and I think I put a lot of responsibility on her, and I
Hmm.
had a really high expectation of her as my first child, because I had lived that,
Yeah.
with my mom. My mom
Hmm.
is a Black woman born in 1920 in the South.
Mm.
So it was all about, well, listen, you got to get this education, you got to do this. And that saying, you have to be twice as good to get
Yep.
half as far. That was ingrained, that was ingrained, that was ingrained. And I think I unintentionally transferred some of that onto Sadell as my oldest child. I didn't have it as much with because you raise your first child different than
Yeah.
your second and your third. I'm just gonna say it. I don't know if that was your experience, but they were raised similar but kind of different. Now, very overprotective of my daughter, and even when she was a baby, there's certain things I wouldn't do, certain things I wouldn't allow
Mhm.
people to do. By the time I had that third child, I was
Mhm.
dragging him around by his ankle. So yeah, I think that was it, Sadell. I don't know if you're still listening, but I think that was it. The expectation and the
Expectation.
responsibility that was placed on you as the older child and the only girl as well.
Yeah. Hmm.
So again, anyone who's listening, hey Jackie and everyone who's there. I'm sorry I didn't shout out everybody. Miss D, thank you for watching. Again, if you haven't already done so, please like, subscribe, and share on the YouTube channel. And also, you can find Marriage Beyond the Breach on Instagram, because we have content on Marriage Beyond on Instagram that's not necessarily on here. Oh, so my daughter, she said, you hit the nail on the head. She said, I'm not mad at you, Mama. I understand where it came from. And it came from a place of love and wanting the best for me and expressing it in the best way you knew how. Oh, thank you, baby daughter. Thank you, baby daughter. Because, I struggled with some mom guilt also as I
Yeah.
got older and I got that delivered for some stuff. And I look back and I said, man, I really could have done better. I really should have done some things differently um, in, in raising my three children. And I really struggled with that. And I actually apologized to all three of them for
Yeah.
things that I did and mistakes that I made that had a negative impact on them while they were growing up, because
That's good.
they don't come with a playbook. We do the best we can with what we know at the time.
At
And
the time.
hopefully, as we live and learn and grow, we'll learn better. Hopefully
Yeah.
it'll be like Dr. Maya Angelou says, when we know better, we do better. Some people know better and don't do better,
And
but the
don't
goal,
do better. Hmm.
the
But
goal would
there's a
be to
lot of playbooks these days, a lot more
that's
playbooks
right.
than were available to us. And so there are no excuses for education
Nowadays.
today. Anything you want to learn
Absolutely.
about. Hmm.
It's at your fingertips.
Yep.
YouTube University and Google,
Hmm. Yep.
right at your fingertips. So, how can someone possibly distinguish between a healthy self criticism and imposter syndrome driven self doubt? How can someone maybe tell the difference?
Yeah. I think that when you have healthy self criticism, you get you get education out of it. You learn
Mm,
something from
mm,
that healthy
mhm,
self criticism. You are better for it. It teaches you lessons. I think the imposter driven self doubt could potentially keep you stuck,
mm,
and you're not coming out of it with more rational thought processing. It's
mhm,
it's persistent, but yeah, but
mhm.
healthy self criticism is necessary. You should be able to critique what you've done, what you've accomplished, what you could do differently the next time, how you could have added to it, subtracted from it. Um,
Mhm.
but but feel okay with that, feel
Right.
okay that it may not have been the best work that you have done, but this is what you'll do differently to enhance it the next time. And
Yeah.
so we all need to be able to have a healthy a healthy way of critiquing our whatever it is that we embark upon. But
Yeah.
when we are in that cycle or syndrome of feeling the like an imposter, then we could potentially get stuck and not be able to come to a rational space.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Because we do need to be able to be honest with ourselves about ourselves when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to self-reflection and self-improvement.
Mm-hmm.
We all have areas where some self-improvement is called for. Possibly, probably all areas of our life, there's room for growth and improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Well,
those who suffer from those five different titles, they get stuck. You get stuck in the perfectionism, and it's like uh, it's this cycle of I didn't meet the mark. I didn't meet the mark. I didn't meet the
right.
mark. This wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. Rather than
Mm.
actually being able to tease out and pick through what happened and what we could do differently, and it's okay
Right.
that I didn't meet the mark of where I thought what I thought I should have been able to accomplish.
Sadell said, I think the difference is that one knows and feels there will be a next time to do better or be better. The imposter maybe feels like there is no next time. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good, boo boo.
that is
Yeah,
good. Hmm.
that's good.
Especially if you feel like this is an unrepeatable fluke, like it just
Okay.
happened. Yeah. The only unrepeatable, the flukes that happen with me are always in technology. You know how you click so many places, you will never be able to go back and click and find out how you got to
Yeah.
where you got to. Those are my unrepeatable flukes. I always feel like I'll never be able to figure this out again. I have made so many clicks and just stumbled upon it. But yeah, that was just an aside. But yes, most often if it is an unrepeatable fluke, then you're going to feel like you can not do it again. That it's not going
We'll
to
do it again.
happen
Yeah.
again.
Okay. She just said, send me the link. I'll come on screen if there's time. I just sent the link to her, so we'll see. I sent the text, Boo Boo, so I don't know if you can come in on your phone or not. Um, so, what about someone who says that the self doubt that is associated with the imposter syndrome is just a part of their personality? It's just who they are. And even though imposter syndrome is not listed in the DSM 5, what might be some treatment for it, and is overcoming it really possible?
So I think that some people may feel like it is part of their personality. Some people do have more of a, hey, how are you, Sadell?
Good. How are you ladies doing tonight?
Okay.
Good,
Hey, Dr.
good.
Danita.
Some people may have personality types that lend itself to more negativity than not, um,
Mm,
and may be a little bit more predisposed to that ongoing feeling of self doubt, which would
mm-hmm.
put them in a position of being feeling like an imposter. I think that I don't think that it is an excuse to say that this is just my personality. I
Mm,
think that
mm-hmm.
people have to get to the place where is this what you want? Do you want to live a negative life? Do you want to live in constant self-doubt and not feel like you can accomplish things in life? Especially as a believer, that's not God's desire for us,
Right.
to constantly be in places of self-doubt and feel like, we can accomplish things in life. So, I think you did ask me what we can do to overcome it. I think Sadell, we lost her.
No, I took her out because I'm gonna bring her back on in a second because I was getting some feedback. I think it was once I brought her on, I was hearing feedback. I don't know if you heard it.
Yeah, I did. I did. But some practical
Mm-hmm.
things that I can think of is one, just acknowledge your feelings and be honest, right, about what you're feeling, because a lot of people with imposter syndrome are embarrassed that they feel the way they feel, so they don't tell anyone. They're feeling ashamed, they're feeling the guilt, feeling embarrassed. So acknowledging your feelings is the first, I think. And then, kind of practicing reframing that negative self-talk and that negative tape that constantly goes in your head. And you have to be intentional about that. I think way too many people don't live intentionally. Whatever happens in their head, they just go with it. Your thoughts can be a runaway train wreck, and you just keep going with the runaway train. So you do have to be intentional about your thought life. Cultivate. I love, I love Dr. Anita Phillips. I think you need to cultivate the soil of your heart. The soil needs to be tended to, so that you think differently about life and about yourself. So doing some motivational affirmations, exercising self-compassion, being mindful, doing some mindfulness, journaling about what makes you feel capable, or, how would your younger self look at you today, and what would your younger self say about, your accomplishments that you have achieved. So you have to be intentional. You can't just, it's not going to just happen by osmosis.
Right.
Yeah. In order to overcome, you have to be intentional about overcoming the challenges and put things in place.
Okay. Hey, Sister Hattie, thank you for joining in. Yeah, we love Dr. Anita Phillips. Even at Mending Hearts, in our clinical meetings, we listen to some of her podcasts, and we talk about her book. It's great content. For those of you, I forgot the name of it. The Garden Within. I had to look at my book for a minute. The Garden Within by Dr. Anita Phillips. Great resource. Great resource. So, yeah. Oh, Sadell said she thought she was getting the feedback because her YouTube was open. So I'm going to bring her back on. Okay, there we are.
Okay.
Hey, baby girl. Better? That's better. Sit down.
Go sit down.
How are you today, baby girl?
I'm good. Like I said, within the first 2 seconds of the show, I'm over here already getting choked up because I'm like, okay, they about to talk about me all night.
Oh, my goodness. So what would you like to add to the conversation about imposter syndrome as it relates to your experience?
So, being however old I am, no, 42. So in my 42 years, even at this point, with like you said, the things that, I've done and I've accomplished, it's something that I still do struggle with. And one of the things that has helped me get through it is what I currently do now, teaching martial arts, and also training martial arts. So not just teaching it, but also doing it myself. And I primarily teach the little ones, ages 2 to 7, 8 years old. And initially when I started teaching, it was, we kind of have a script we go off of, kind of things that we want to, points that we want to hit home. Like, yes, we're doing punches and kicks, but it's to teach them about, self-discipline, confidence, things like that. And initially it was, just kind of a script. It was just something I was saying. But then also training in it is like, I started to believe what I was saying, because it's like, how can I stand in front of these kids and say these things and want the best for them if I don't believe it for myself? And I do tell them that, like, even as, now a black belt, even as a grown woman, I still have the same struggles where sometimes my immediate first thought is I can't, or I messed up. And I tell my kids, like, that's not a bad thing, but your second thought should be, yes, I can. Maybe not now. Maybe I have to work a little bit harder, but eventually it will happen. And, like I said, teaching the kids and being able to see the differences in their abilities when they come in, and, the cognitive, levels and things like that, but they all eventually get to the same point. It makes me then realize, okay, maybe this, comes naturally for some other people that I train with. Yeah. Because they've been training for so long. I can't expect the same to be at that same level. So the same things that I'm now telling my kids, like, I have to believe it in myself. So that has been a huge, huge help for me.
Wow. That's beautiful,
good.
baby Florida. That's great insight. That is absolutely great insight. And I think even with counseling, I don't think there's anything quite like working with someone through their stuff and having a light bulb go off in your own head, and you realize that some of your stuff that you've got to deal with yourself. And how can I now sit here and encourage this person to do this, that, and the other if I am not willing to do it myself?
Yes. I see so much of myself, especially like some of my teenage female students. I see a lot of myself in them, and I'm upfront and honest with them. Like I get on them a lot because of that. It's like I don't want you guys to be 40 some years old still struggling with the same things I'm struggling. I'm pointing it out now, like this is what I went through. This is what I'm going through now. This is kind of how I'm dealing with it. Recognize it early enough that you don't have to be 30 years later still dealing with the same things.
Yeah.
So Valerie, would that be the definition of a real imposter? When you are telling people things that you're not even willing to try yourself?
Yes. Absolutely. If you're not willing to try yourself. Yeah. I think, that's really good. I try to not do that. But when it comes
I try to make a commitment not to do that. We don't always, we fail at times, but it's not in our heart not to attempt and not to, to try to be consistent in whatever it is that we're sharing with others.
Yeah, I was getting feedback again. You went, I don't see you. Oh, there you are. You're back again. Okay, it went dark. Yeah. And that happens a lot when I'm counseling couples. And I think I shared, I don't know if it's last time, at one point I was counseling a couple, and immediately when I finished that session, I went to my husband and I apologized because I saw myself doing some of the very things that this wife was doing. And here I am counseling her and trying to facilitate and giving her some pointers and encouragement how to possibly consider doing something differently. And I had to own up to that and say, you know what, Val, you're guilty of some of the same stuff. You got to go ahead and say sorry to this cookie man. So, so Sister Hattie, thank you for that. She said she don't know much about imposter syndrome, but you're here to learn. And I don't know when you joined, but if you were not here in the beginning, you can go back to the beginning of the broadcast, and where Dr. Danita gave a very, very good definition of imposter syndrome, the different categories, some things that may contribute to it developing in someone. And as you heard, we've been talking about, Dr. Danita mentioned some ways to combat imposter syndrome. Oh, she said she will. All right, sister, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. So, Dr. Danita, any last words that you want to share? And don't forget to mention the journal again.
I will. So, I think I've said this several times on other shows that I don't want anybody to live beneath the privilege of what they could experience in life. And if you are dealing, or with imposter syndrome, you're definitely living beneath the privilege of life experiences, in a healthy way. And so I would suggest that you pick one of the things that I share that you can begin doing. You don't have to start with them all, but start someplace. Right. It's the worst thing is to get education, to get knowledge, to come to an awareness and then do nothing about it. So, reach out for help if you are struggling to even put something in place. If you find yourself struggling to put something in place to overcome your challenges, then reach out for help. The one thing that I do know, again, as believers, that there's so much work to be done and for the kingdom, And it's not about us. It's
Right.
about the work for the kingdom. And so if we're going to be hindered by our inability to feel like we're making a difference, so we won't try again, or, feel like we're walking in our calling and purpose, and we're not really doing what God had, if we feel like we're not really doing what God has called us to do, it's just all going to impact the work that
Yes.
He wants us to do. And so I just want to be the healthiest that I could possibly be for what I've been put on this earth to do. Because we've
Yes.
all
Yes.
been put on earth to do
To
something.
do something. Absolutely.
Yes.
And that's it is at least from my perspective, a life altering moment when you realize what it is you were put on this earth for.
Absolutely.
It completely shifts your mindset and changes the trajectory of your life in an intentional way. And
Yeah.
it's I don't know, it's just transformative. I'll put it like that. It's very, very transformative when you discover what that thing is or what those things are, because
Yeah.
there may be a season for this purpose and another season for that purpose. And I can speak to that personally because I had my season when my purpose was to work as an RN.
Yeah.
Now my purpose is to function as a counselor and a coach to be impactful, and but in a different way, to contribute to health in a different way. And to me, there's nothing like walking in and working in and serving in your God-given purpose. There's nothing like it. You can't go wrong as far as I'm concerned when you do
That's
that,
right.
Dr. Danita.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
You cannot go wrong. Yeah.
All right. And so if you find that you are in any way, not even if you're struggling, because this can enhance whether you're struggling or not, the Journal to Freedom can enhance your work that you are doing to either overcome imposter syndrome or just to grow as a person, mind, body, and spirit. I encourage you to head on over to my website and don't just purchase one for yourself. Christmas is coming soon.
That's right.
So it would be a great gift to gift to someone so that they can embark upon their journey as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Because that's what I did. I got one for myself. I got one for my sister, Jackie, as well. It's a great tool to utilize. So I encourage everyone who's listening to go to Dr. Danita's website and get the book. It will make a difference in your life. And one of the beautiful things about it, because you know how sometimes journals are labeled date by date and by month and by all that. This isn't like that. So you don't necessarily have to do one a section today and then tomorrow and then the next day. Even Sadel's putting hers up too. Is that you, Sadel? Yep.
Got mine too.
Sadel has hers too. And it's labeled in sections in mind, body, and spirit. There are different sections in there. And you could even go from one section to the other because there may be a day you want to focus on the mind. Might be another day you want to focus on your spirit or your body. So I encourage you to go to Dr. Danita's website. It's there on the screen, and get the book for yourself. Get at least half a dozen of them, because even if you don't know someone that you can give it to now, give it to a colleague at work. You may come across someone in line at Wells Fargo, or at Giant or in Walmart. We don't go to Walmart. We don't go to Walmart, but a lot of us do go to Walmart. But so you just never know. So get as many as you possibly can, and go to Dr. Danita's website. Here there are a few more comments over here. I want to get to them. Oh, Jackie said it's a great journal. Jackie has one as well. Oh, Sister Hattie, go to the website to order one. You will not
Awesome.
be
Thank you.
sorry, Sister Hattie. So I just want to thank you guys so much. Baby girl, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
Just the closing thoughts that you both gave were just right on the money. Like Dr. Danita said, like once you realize, okay, this is what I'm going through, you need to do more than just have that realization. It's like now,
Mhm.
what am I going to do to change it, or do I want to do anything to change it, or is this how my life is going to be? But realizing that, okay, this is what I'm going through, and not trying to change or fix everything all at once, because then you're dealing with a whole nother set of issues.
Yeah.
Like I can say for me, I have struggled with in several different areas, but one of the first things that I decided I was going to work on was the negative thoughts. Like even
Hmm.
if that first thought is negative, follow it up with something
Yeah.
positive. Once that started to feel more natural, then starting to work on other aspects of it. And what you said about once you realize kind of what your purpose in life is, like what you're here to do, that gives you such an awesome feeling. Like I have always known I've wanted to work with kids in some way, shape, or
Yeah.
form, and I have. My very first job was working with children, and to this day, I still am. And throughout my life, it's been in different, in different areas. But I think now I'm really finding what I'm supposed to do, and that kind of just gives you, such a sense of freedom and just an overwhelming joy. Is like, okay, I know what I'm here for. Like I know how
Mhm.
to help others, and in that, helping yourself as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Sister
Awesome.
Hattie says she can't wait to go back and hear from the beginning. Thank you so much, Sister Hattie. Thank you so much for those who are watching live or later, because even later can have an impact. You know, there God is not limited by time or
No,
distance,
he's not.
and He can make a difference in your life at any point, at any time, at any place. I don't. Hey, Dr. Angel, thank you for watching. So, Dr. Danita, my baby girl, Boo Boo darling, thank you so much for being here. I love you. I appreciate you. Those who are listening, come back next week. I'm going to be talking about, so y'all hear me a lot of time talking about the Gottmans and Gottman theory and all of that. So next week, I'm going to be talking about just that and breaking it down and what it is and how it came about and the different components of it. I really, really love Gottman therapy. Um, and no, I'm not paid to say that, but I really, really do love that. And Prepare and Rich also, because they're very similar in many regards. So thank you again. That's all I can say is thank you. This has been an amazing conversation, and I trust that many people will be blessed by what they have heard and recognize imposter syndrome in themselves and seek help. Seek help. Seek help. Seek help. Counseling, a mentor, come to Mending Hearts, but you don't have to come to Mending Hearts because there are practices everywhere
Yeah.
that can possibly help you. But I highly recommend Mending Hearts because I'm kind of partial to it. All right, so you all have a blessed rest of your night, and I will see you all next week. Be
All
blessed.
right. Thank you.
Good night.